2nd. And yes, I can tell you we have had fun the last 2 days doing preview shows, getting ready for the season. It's time to drop the damn puck. It's opening night. It's finally here. We're fired up, and we're ready for opening night. A 4-game slate of action tonight taking place. National TV doubleheaders on both sides of the border, regardless of whether you're in Canada or the United States. You've got a doubleheader to feast on tonight. North of the border in Canada on Rogers Sportsnet, you've got Toronto and Ottawa, followed by Edmonton, Vancouver. All Canadian matchups there. South of the border, you're watching on NBC Sports Network. Wednesday night hockey back again. You've got Washington and St. Louis, battle of the last 2 Stanley Cup champs. Following that with what should be an intense, nasty piece of business in Sin City between the San Jose Sharks and Vegas Golden Knights, teams that have met each other in the playoffs 2 years in a row and have developed the hatred of 2 teams that have played in the playoffs against each other 2 years in a row. So it's 4 interesting games tonight. We're ready to break them all down. Alex B. Smith and Andrew McGinnis joining me today on the show. Let's get a first word from both of you and your excitement level for opening night. Alex, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I've been up since about 6 a.m., which is rare for me. Just full of energy, ready to, like I said, watch these games and just breaking things down, and we're doing different shows and whatnot, and we've all been texting and talking and everything on Twitter. It's just, this is a fun day of the year. Any opening day for any sport is fun, but being such hockey fans as we are, this is one of the special days. And like I said, we got 4 really good matchups too. That's usually sometimes you'll have 1 or 2. Obviously, like I said, a Stanley Cup champion, with their banner raising ceremony. But this is a good opening night card, and it leads into a strong weekend. So, like I said, ready to drop the puck and get along with it. I do have one public service announcement though. If you have cable or satellite in North America, I know Ian, you don't have to deal with this, but the NHL Center Ice package, you have a free preview that's about 8 or 9 days long. But check with your channels around this time, as soon as you finish watching this, to see if your channels are activated. This happened to me a couple of years ago. True story. I missed 3 of Austin Matthews' first 4 goals of his career because I was on the phone with my cable provider because they weren't giving me the free preview that I was supposed to have. So you don't want to be dealing with that at the 7 o'clock hour. Make sure everything's all working and you get your free preview in time. And then if you want to sign up for it too, you actually get a better deal signing up during that trial run. So definitely make sure to check that out.
They'll actually do the same thing in Canada for Bell Fiber Up and Eastlink. So all kinds of different stuff, at least where I'm from, especially with Bell nationwide coverage, they'll be giving you the full center ice. So yeah, like you said, Alex, I'm planning on doing it with my roommates, but definitely going to wait probably until that expires.
That's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, no doubt. Andrew, go ahead. How excited are you for opening night? Obviously, I'm sure you are.
No, I can't wait. I mean, Alex and I just finished doing a show together, and we're both just talking about breaking down the games. But for me right now, and this is something that's not really something I'd usually say, but guys, I wasn't someone that as a kid loved school or loved going to it, but I'm ready to be a student of the game this year with the NHL and learn from each team. I mean, we have 4 games to start things out. We're going to learn a lot from each team. Is Edmonton still shitty? Does Vancouver have some upside to them? Can St. Louis still be great? Is Ottawa as bad as we think they are? Can Toronto play a good defensive style of hockey? There's so many headlines and bulletins that we can really cover here today, and we're going to learn from tonight. So I look forward to discussing tomorrow on tomorrow's show what we've learned from even just tonight's games.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll definitely squeeze in some opening night thoughts on the show tomorrow when we break it all down. So a couple of things. First of all, you'll notice we're on our new platform, StreamYard, this year, which has been fantastic to use that. You'll notice we got our names, of course, and our Twitter handles listed for everybody. So make sure you follow us on Twitter. You can see it right there on your screen. I'm at Bobano. Alex P. Smith is at AX Smith Sports, and Andrew McGinnis is at McGinnis Picks, so on Twitter. So that's where you can follow us on there. And of course, at the _ Ice Guys, our NHL Ice Guys Twitter account. Make sure you're following that as well. Before we start breaking down these games, one little piece of information I think I should pass along to all of our viewers, all of our subscribers. I will be posting picks daily here for our NHL Ice Guys picks that we have, all of our wagers that we recommend on the show, and I will be posting them on the Patreon page just like I did last year. However, I'm going to be a stickler in one aspect. We want you to watch the damn shows, guys. We really do, either live or archived. See the product we're putting out see that how we're breaking down these games. So I will not this season be posting the picks until about 15 minutes to 30 minutes max before the puck drop of the first game. And that's by design, so that it gives you guys, allows you to see the shows, because we want you to be watching the shows. We don't want you to just be logging into Patreon and just going right to the picks section and just seeing the picks and not watching the shows, because we're putting great info out there. We want you to be watching on a daily basis. So about 15-20 minutes before puck drop is when our plays that we give out here on the Patreon NHL Ice Guys show will be posted on the Patreon page. So just a bit of information there regarding that. All right, let's get to it. We've got the Ottawa Senators, Toronto Maple Leafs. It'll be the first game dropping the puck on the 2019-2020 NHL season. Right now, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs currently ranging from -270 to -280 as home favorites. The total 6.5 here in this game. And when you look at it from a Toronto Maple Leafs perspective, definitely, I think in terms of the talent level on this hockey team, it has increased from last year. I don't think there's much denial there about that. But the fact remains, you're still upwards of 8 to 10 new faces on this team and 8 to 10 players from last year's team that are gone. And while they're talented guys, Tyson Barrie, talented, great defenseman, Alex Kerfoot, great breakout season for him last year with the Colorado Avalanche. They expect some of these guys that have made the team surprisingly out of training camp, like a Rasmus Sandin, a very highly regarded defenseman prospect for the Leafs, who's made the team out of training camp, who was excellent in training camp, expected to make an impact for this team. They're very high on some of the additions up front, like Ilya Mikheyev, who's going to be playing on the third line for the Leafs. Dmytro Timashov, who after years in the minors is now going to be on the fourth line for this Toronto Maple Leafs team. And so there's a lot of things to be excited about. Nick Shore, another new face, will be on that Leaf fourth line. But again, you're talking about a lot of new talent, a lot of new players. It could take time to gel, could take time to get that chemistry where it needs to be on the ice. So personally for me in this game, obviously we know Toronto's talent-wise, depth-wise, the better team here, but Ottawa always treats their head-to-head games against Toronto like a Stanley Cup of sorts. They get excited to play the Leafs. They're up for the Leafs. They give the Leafs a hard time. They really do. The Ottawa Senators have always given the Leafs a really, really tough game. Win or lose, you usually get great effort from the Senators. Of course, they'll be looking to impress their new head coach, first-year NHL head coach DJ Smith, who was actually on Mike Babcock's staff the last few years in Toronto as an assistant coach. So you talk about two guys that know each other very well and their tendencies and their coaching philosophies and what systems they want to employ with their respective teams. Mike Babcock knows DJ Smith well. DJ Smith knows Mike Babcock well. So you could go back and forth on saying who's got the edge. I think both guys know each other well and what they're going to do out there. For the Senators, you're going to have big seasons from some of your prospects that you're going to have to rely on. Brady Tkachuk had a nice season last year. Can he continue to progress? I thought Anthony Duclair really played well last year after joining Ottawa. Bobby Ryan, does he still have a good offensive season in the tank? They bring in Tyler Ennis, another former Leaf. In fact, this is a funny game in the fact that there's so many former Leafs now playing for the Ottawa Senators. Tyler Ennis, a former Leaf. Nikita Zaitsev on defense, a former Leaf. Ron Hainsey, a former Leaf, now on this Ottawa blue line as well. So a very interesting matchup in that regard. Thomas Chabot's the player to watch, I think, on this Ottawa team. He's just an electrifying defenseman who can join the rush, join the play, contribute offense from the back end. Going to be fun to see how he develops in this game. I'm going to be saying this once and once only, so I don't have to repeat why I'm on the over in every single hockey game tonight. The over is 9-3 in 12 games on opening night of the season the last 3 years since 2016. 9-3 to the over. 12 opening night games since 2016. And all 9 games that flew over the total had 7 or more total goals scored in them. So I'm just telling you right now, I'm on Toronto, Ottawa over. I'm on Washington, St. Louis over. I'm on Vancouver, Edmonton over. I like the Vancouver, Edmonton over most of all tonight. For what it's worth, and San Jose, Vegas over as well going into this game tonight, going into tonight's game. And again, we're talking a 9-3 mark over the total in 12 games on opening night of the NHL season, dating back to 2016. So that's a serious trend, and it's understandable why when you think about it. You've got defensemen especially the defense pairings that haven't, gelled yet, not used to playing with each other yet. You sometimes have sloppy play, turnovers, guys not reading each other on the ice, making those tape-to-tape passes. You have a better chance of knowing where your line mate is going to be on the ice in January than you will in October, the first game of the season. It's just human nature. So that can sometimes lead into transition offense and giving up, odd man rushes the other way, and goaltending. It goes without saying, none of your starting goaltenders, for as good as they are, number one goalies, most of them will be in on opening night. For as good as they are, none of them are in that rhythm of playing every other day yet. All right, they played a couple of games here and there in the preseason, and now you got to get them back into that natural flow and that natural rhythm of starting in between the pipes every other day. Nobody's in that rhythm yet, and often it can lead to some suspect, shaky goaltending early in the season. So you put all those factors together, you get a 9-3 over result, on opening night the last 3 years. So I'm on the over in every game tonight, including this one, Ottawa and Toronto. Nothing on the side for me in this game. Let's start with Alex B. Smith. Senators and Leafs, Battle of Ontario to kick off the season. What do you like here, Alex?
Yeah, well, like you said, you got a rivalry matchup with the Battle of Ontario. You got a lot of people who are familiar with this matchup. Like you said, former Toronto players playing in Ottawa, so they know what it's like to be on that other side. And while yes, Toronto is one of the best teams in the league, Ottawa is one of the worst teams in the league. But like I said, this is a huge game for Ottawa, and they've shown it. 12-4 the last 16 meetings. Ottawa has won, and they have played opening night in 3 of the last 4 years. Ottawa's still winning in those every time. As I mentioned earlier, the Austin Matthews game. Austin Matthews was absolutely dynamite, scoring 4 goals. Those only 4 goals they got from the Leafs that night, as Senators ended up scoring 5. So this is a big game for Ottawa. This is as healthy as we'll see Ottawa all year. If you're an Ottawa fan, it's probably the only time you're going to see Ottawa above 500 this often if they win this game. And I think they're going to take this one seriously. Like I said, time to gel. Something we got to keep note of with a lot of teams that make changes, like we've seen with Toronto. It's going to take time for things to gel, and it won't just happen overnight. Even though you had the preseason, but obviously preseason you got 60, 70 guys that are all battling for spots, roster spots. It's all about practice more than the actual game itself. So you can't go by that. One thing you can go by though in preseason, and it was mentioned through the media in Ottawa yesterday, was the funny clip of Austin Matthews chirping with Scott Sabrin. And Austin Matthews goes and does one of these. He's looking over his shoulder trying to say, who the hell are you, to come in and talk to me? And some of the veteran Senators players made note of that and brought that up. So, as big of a target as you already have on number 34's back, it's only going to get bigger if you start chirping the rival team that has dominated you in 12 of the last 16 meetings. So if you don't want to fuel any more fire underneath this Ottawa team than you already have at plus 245. I love the Senators here tonight to get the win on opening night.
All right. How about that? We start the season with a bang from Alex's perspective with a plus 245 money line underdog, hoping to cash a big ticket there with Ottawa. I don't want to lay anything with Toronto, so I don't disagree with that sentiment one bit. We'll see how it goes tonight. And Ottawa's, I think, made a mountain out of a molehill with that whole Matthew Sabrin situation, in my opinion. Who is he anyway? Scott Sabrin. Who is he?
I don't know who he is either. But
he's actually been on some good teams. He's actually been on some decent teams in the AHL.
I'd say the same damn thing if I'm a good player and you're just some stiff from the minor leagues. I'd say, who are you? You flapping your gums at me. I don't think I like that. I like that Ottawa's using something though. As fuel and motivation and getting them fired.
The fact is though, in sports, any little thing, like Ian said, can motivate you. Anything at all is going to motivate you, and no matter who you are or how big of a player you are, whether you're Connor McDavid or whoever you are, Scott Stapp, doesn't matter who you are, because the littlest things. To me, he did his job because he got someone talking. He got Austin Matthews trying to act cool. He got him trying to be cocky. He made something out of nothing, and that's what he's out there for, is to be a 200-foot player, a hard-hitting player, and to piss off the other team. Alex couldn't have said it any better. He already has a target on his back. It's opening night, and we know he has a history of doing well on opening night. Matthews, of course, we're talking about. But, to put that extra target on your back, and I wouldn't really take these, Battle of Ontario or rivalry games, especially on opening day, too seriously. But with these two teams, after what we saw in the preseason between them, I completely agree with Alex. I definitely I think that's a bad thing that Matthews did, and he's going to realize. It's kind of like in football. I mean, it is football season. When I saw a video the other day of Bill Belichick, the coach of the Patriots, telling Chad Ochocinco, "Hey, we're going to have you in double coverage today. We're going to have you in double coverage today. You're running your mouth. It's a thing. You don't run your mouth. You don't smack talk because you're not going to score. And I think that'll happen to Matthews tonight. For me personally, I'm on the over 6.5. I wouldn't look either way. I think that, of course, like Alex is choosing the value, and I think that's great. I wouldn't look at least on the money line or puck line because even on the puck line, you're still giving money to get the money. So between these two teams, there's some scorers for Ottawa. There's some younger guys. There's no all-stars by any means, but there's some younger guys. And I do agree with what Ian said about Anthony Duclair. He's a guy that really found a home. I think he's going to excel and play his best hockey of his career in Ottawa. So there's a few guys that can get the job done. It's going to be a matter of if they can score early. If the Ottawa Senators get down 2-0, 3-0 midway through the second period, they're going to start to feel pretty poorly with themselves. But I can really see this being a track meet style game, end-to-end hockey. Guys, we have four straight up awesome games tonight, and I think this one will kick it off with a lot of scoring. I could see it being a 5-3, 6-3 game. Alex, obviously want you to win your bet, but obviously the Leafs are favored for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. So Andrew and I on over 6.5 in this game. Alex taking a chance here with Ottawa plus 245. Big money line price, and I like taking a chance with big underdogs early in the season because the top teams have changes. Top teams may not be in full form, full flight yet. And Ottawa, you look at the recent track record, and Alex mentioned it, ad nauseum during his breakdown. Ottawa's always given Toronto a really hard, really tough game, and I wouldn't be surprised to see anything different tonight between these two. Next up, two previous Stanley Cup champions facing off in the Gateway City. We've got the Washington Capitals and the St. Louis Blues defending Stanley Cup champ. Feels good to say that. I really am happy for St. Louis. I'm really happy for Blues fans because I know a couple. Brandon in St. Louis, who is a longtime friend of mine on Twitter, he has been a Blues fan and a Cardinals fan, obviously, for a very long time. And the Blues in particular have not had a lot of good times in the postseason. They finally got it last year. Lightning struck in a bottle for them, and they ended up going all the way, getting red hot in the second half of the season with Craig Berube taking over as head coach from Mike Yeo, and the rest is history. St. Louis Stanley Cup champions, but they'll be in tough to repeat. We'll see if they can get off to a good start tonight against Washington, hosting the Capitals. St. Louis minus 145 to minus 150. As home favorites here. The total of straight flat 5.5 across the board. This is another game for me personally. I bet over 5.5 and Washington here as the underdog plus 130 in this game. Capitals and the I don't love this. This is the over I like the least tonight on this NHL card because we do have two pretty solid, sturdy defensive teams. We know St. Louis showed that in the playoff run last year. We know you've got two more than capable goaltenders, of course, starting the game for both of these teams, Binnington and Holtby. So you're talking about situations here for both of these hockey teams where they're good defensive teams. It's not a shoe-in for an over 5.5, but again, taking into account at 9-3 over mark, the last three opening nights since 2016, I'm getting in on this game over the total. And even though both teams are pretty good at that end of the ice, wouldn't surprise me still to see those miscues. And even for Binnington and Holtby, those two very good goaltenders, a situation where maybe they're just not on top of their game in game one of the season when they're not in that playing rhythm just yet. But obviously you've got two teams that are going to be very, very good again. Washington to me is going to be really, really solid again. You've got Ovechkin playing better and better. It seems it's like a fine wine getting better with age. You could say that about Alex Ovechkin, especially because in the last couple of years, he's developed and transformed his game. He's learned how to play without the puck. He's learned how to be responsible defensively, play as a penalty killer for Todd Reardon in that regard. He's been very, very good. He'll be on a line with Backstrom and Tom Wilson. How about that? Tom Wilson will be getting number one line minutes. I can't blame you. Tom Wilson's a good complementary line mate for Ovechkin because he can get to those tough areas in front of the net, bang and crash in front of the net. That's a Tom Wilson characteristic right there. And he'll be looking to do that for the Capitals. Vrana with Eller and Oshie in terms of your second line. Carl Hagelin, Chandler Stevenson, Richard Panik, your third line for the Capitals. Leipzig, Dowd, and Hathaway, the fourth line. The defense, very interesting. Some turnover there with the Capitals on the blue line. Of course, Niskanen not there anymore. You got John Carlson still there to lead the way and anchor that blue line. Orlov is there, very good. Nick Jensen was a great pickup from the Detroit Red Wings at the trade deadline last year. I still like that blue line. You still have Braden Holtby in net for the Washington Capitals. So this is still a rock-solid team. They're definitely a factor in the Eastern Conference, no question. And for as good as St. Louis was last year, there's a little element in the back of my mind that's thinking St. Louis just caught lightning in a bottle. They got red hot at the right time. They just played in out of their minds good hockey, out of their minds to the point where I have some trepidation about whether this team can repeat the feat that they had last year for the St. Louis team. Now, don't get me wrong. Tarasenko, Shen, Schwartz, O'Reilly had an amazing year. O'Reilly Auto Parts, as I like to call him, David Perron. There's a lot of guys that really stepped up their game, played awesome in the postseason. The blue line, Pietrangelo, Bouwmeester, Parayko, Dunn. And I like the addition of Justin Falk. It was already a pretty good blue line. You get Justin Falk from the Carolina Hurricanes right before the season, makes them better. But the fact remains, it's very difficult to repeat. It's very difficult for Stanley Cup finalists to get out of the gate strong and fast. As evidenced last year, I brought up that stat in one of our preview shows. Washington and Vegas last year, the two Stanley Cup finalists from the year before, they started the season a combined 17 and 23. All right, 6 games below 500. That's what I worry about with St. Louis. That's what I worry about with Boston, of course, who's the other Stanley Cup finalist from last year. So, and again, banner night, raising the banner, getting your Stanley Cup rings, always a distraction. So for those reasons, we're on Washington and also over the total tonight in this game. I got to mention, though, before we turn it over to Alex and Andrew for their thoughts on this game, the incredible stuff from the St. Louis Blues organization with Layla giving her a Stanley Cup ring. If you haven't seen that, you're obviously living under a rock, or you're not really a big-time hockey fan, because I think any hockey fan's probably seen the video by now, either on TV or on YouTube or somewhere. Just an incredible job by the St. Louis Blues. It shows the class, being respectful and the humility to sympathize and really try to make someone's life better, someone in a tough predicament, in an unfortunate circumstance, trying to lift their spirits, lift them up, make them, help them through a very, very difficult time. I think it's absolutely amazing what the St. Louis Blues have done. Props to them. Classy organization. It's hard to hate this team. I know if you're a division rival of the St. Louis Blues, you're thinking to yourself, why do I got to like this team? Why? But they've given you a lot of reasons to like them with the job they did in awarding a Stanley Cup championship ring to Layla, one of their biggest fans and obviously one of their bravest fans for trying to survive the ordeal she's had to go through physically in the last few years. So props to the St. Louis Blues. Job well done. Alex B. Smith, your thoughts on the Capitals and Blues tonight?
Yeah, perfectly well said. Like I said, even me as a Hawks fan, I can only stand and applaud the class for the Blues to present her with a ring. That was absolutely incredible. A moment, like I said, if you haven't seen that, you must see that today somewhere online. But getting with this game, like you said, it's banner night, and it's banner night for a franchise, like I said, that has suffered long and hard, and finally they get to see a Western Conference championship and a Stanley Cup championship banner raised tonight. And these are long ceremonies. These are emotional ceremonies. Like I said, I'm sure Layla will probably be in attendance tonight. So all these things that are bottled up, like I said, the fever pitch in the city. You got the Cardinals in the playoffs. All of that emotion, bottled up in the one moment. And that can be a tough thing to deal with at times, especially when you got a hungry team like Washington, who just did this calendar year ago. And they were one of the few teams to, all right, we hang up our banners, and then they went and kicked the holy crap out of Boston 7-0 at home. More often than not, the home team does not show up for this game. They usually start off a little slow because of the delay with the time, and then that road team comes out hungry, especially when they say, hey, you know what, that should be us raising a banner this year. And don't think for 1 second that Ovechkin and Holtby and company won't be saying that same thing while they're sitting on the bench watching those banners go up, say, hey, we've done this before. We need to be doing that again a year from now. So let's start off hot with this win. Holtby will be in net. He's 7-1 in 8 career starts against the St. Louis Blues. And it's interesting, you mentioned all the different turnover for the Capitals, but I'm looking, Phoenix Copley was placed on waivers. It's Ilya Samsonov is going to be the backup, more likely getting the start Friday. If you go on, all you subscribers, check out the Ice Guys. I put up my goalie power rankings for the Eastern and Western Conference, and I'll be updating those regularly. But it's interesting. I have Copley as of yesterday was my number 2 guy, and it was a 20-cent drop off between him and Holtby. I had it as a 35-cent drop off for Samsonov backing up Holtby. So that's something that I'll have to adjust and definitely see after the weekend. But I'm stunned at that move. I liked Copley as a backup. I thought he was pretty solid. I'm guessing it's going to be a cap-related decision to why he's on waivers. But wrapping up with this game, Washington, like I said, on the road, ceremony night at a nice plus price with a goalie that's done well against the Blues historically. I like Washington to get the win here.
All right, Washington as well for Alex B. Smith in this game. And yeah, that is surprising to see that move with the goaltending. And Samsonov's a wait-and-see guy. Like, we don't know much about him. We don't know how he's going to react to NHL time and NHL starts. We'll get obviously a good gauge of that Friday night, as he is already being tabbed to make his first NHL start that night for the Capitals. And great job mentioning your goalie rankings. I was going to mention that. I wanted to mention it and forgot to mention that. They are posted on the Patreon page. Alex B. Smith's goaltending rankings, and for some teams he's got a much bigger drop from the number 1 goalie to the number 2 goalie on the team. You want to make note of that. Not these 2 goalie situations with each team are not created equal. All right, there's different strengths and weaknesses with each team in terms of their backup goalie. You want to be aware of which backups are maybe bet on and which backup goalies are maybe more bet against, and those goaltending rankings from Alex will start to point you in the right direction in terms of that for sure. Andrew, let's get your thoughts on the Capitals and Blues tonight. You like anything betting-wise in this game?
Yeah, I want to make it clear for me, no official play, but I do like the same strategy that you guys have for the Washington Capitals to take care of business. And it's one thing when the strategy can work out when you're playing a defending Stanley Cup champion team. But it's also one thing when you have a great team playing that in that position. I mean, this is a Washington Capitals team that is a great team. We're getting them at an underdog spot here. And I think that, with the stat that Alex said, especially with this team, you got to like it. You got to like the number you're getting. And, this year specifically, I'm going to focus, especially early on in the year, on not playing too high of numbers or of odds. But if I do, it's going to be, very seldom. I'm not going to want to get too carried away with laying heavy juice. I'll be doing a lot of regulation betting or puck lines. So getting this Washington Capitals team at all in a plus money price here against a team that I think, is equal to, if not less skilled than they are, is a great betting opportunity. For me, guys, one thing I'm going to kind of implement to the Ice Guys on the Patreon page here this year is going to be some prop bets. Mostly on a day-to-day basis, I'll be putting up prop bets here. I also have a few on Twitter. But the first one I'm going to go with here, guys, is going to be the over in saves for Jordan Binnington. It's listed at 25.5 minus 130. I think that's a great number here. I expect it to be much higher. And that's what I'm going to go with for my official pick here, Ian, on this game. I feel like he's going to be bombarded with shots, and he's going to have to show early on how great of a goalie he still is. Over 25.5 saves for Binnington.
Excellent. We love any prop recommendations. We love having them here on the show. Actually, what reminds me, wheeling back to Ottawa, Toronto, I think it's a dirt cheap price on it. I mentioned this on Twitter earlier. Austin Matthews just minus 115 to score a goal tonight in that game. He's owned Ottawa. He's absolutely been terrorizing that team. He had a great preseason. What did he have? 5 goals and I think barely 5 or 6 games. Like, he was tremendous in the preseason for the Leafs. And it's only minus 115 for him just to score 1 goal tonight. That's a cheap price, near even money. I thought it should be more like minus 1. There's some guys with their goal scoring props, anytime goal scorers, sometimes minus 140 for some. I thought that's where that price should have been, not minus 115.
125.
Yeah, Austin Matthews, 10 goals and 7 assists in his career against Ottawa. So definitely a good price for that prop.
Yeah, definitely. So that's one that really stood out like a sore thumb to me. Andrew liking Jordan Binnington over 25.5 saves tonight, and that's an official play and recommendation from him for that game tonight. Next up, back to an all-Canadian matchup. Vancouver Canucks, Edmonton Oilers, 2 teams looking for the arrow to point up this year after disappointing non-playoff seasons. last year. So it's a fascinating game. This is one of the games that I'm just as excited as any to watch, because both of these teams want to make improvements. There's been some changes on both teams, and we'll see how they fare. We've got Edmonton minus 130, total 6, shaded to the under, and it's noting on that total, it's gone up a half goal. It opened 5.5. It's up to 6 now, pretty much across the board. The big change in Edmonton is front office completely new, head coach completely new. Out goes Ken Hitchcock. Out, obviously, during the season went Peter Chiarelli, even Keith Gretzky, the guy that replaced him for a little bit in the interim role. He's not in that position anymore. It's now Ken Holland, tasked with rebuilding and turning around this moribund Edmonton Oilers franchise. And he did it in Detroit. Like, he turned water into wine in Detroit. He built the Red Wings franchise up from the ground up, from nothing, from absolutely nothing, when Ken Holland took it over, and he just did a phenomenal job. Always a contender, always a perennial winner when he was there in Detroit all those years. And now the Edmonton Oilers are hoping Ken Holland brings them back to that kind of stature in the near future. It may be a little longer than that, but obviously I think finally it's a hire that the Edmonton Oilers can feel good about. And I think a stable hire, too, in the head coaching spot. Dave Tippett, veteran head coach, knows what he's doing, won't panic, won't be flustered in a situation like this where he's taking over a rebuilding team. Why is that? Because he's done that in 2 previous stops, Dallas Stars and Phoenix Coyotes, rebuilding organizations. This isn't something that's going to panic him or phase him or fluster him. So I think in that regard, you got stability at GM now, a stable head coaching choice in Dave Tippett. And Dave Tippett, if you know him well and you know his coaching style, every coach has their own ways of doing things, their own systems. He's defense first. He always has been, and he always probably will be. And that's definitely something he's going to be looking at with Edmonton. Problem is, you've got a lackluster at best personnel on the defensive end of the ice. That's a concern. It's not going to be an overnight fix for Dave Tippett in terms of fixing this defense and fixing the turnovers and fixing the bad penalty kill that they've had the last couple seasons. It's going to take time. So I remember everyone was talking about, look out for this Ottawa defense when Guy Boucher took over there, and they still were miserable defensively the first couple months of that season, his first year there. It's going to take time for Edmonton to really improve defensively. I expect offensively, you're still concerned about the bottom 6 forwards, who's going to step up and score and produce and give you that secondary scoring. But obviously the top 6, there's not much wrong there. With Leon, with Connor, with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, you're going to be relying on them quite a bit again this season if you're the Edmonton Oilers. And Vancouver's still shaky with their goaltending a bit. Like, Markstrom's good at times, not so good at others. Demko has definitely some upside, definitely has some ability, but can he show it at the NHL level this season is going to be something that remains to be seen. And on the flip side, for the Vancouver Canucks, questions about them, but I really like what they're doing in terms of improving a team that I believe was in the mid to late 20s in terms of their ranking in the NHL last year in goals scored. They really have gone a long way to improve that. All of a sudden, I look at the Canuck forward lines, and I'm looking, wow, they've actually got some offense this year. Pettersson's great, Besser on the top line. Michael Furlan, don't be fooled by him. I know he's a physical guy. He can score goals for you. That's a great addition to Vancouver. Same with JT Miller, guy that's been with the Rangers and the Lightning in previous stops, with Bo Horvat and Tanner Pearson, a guy that I still think's got some offensive upside. Look, Vancouver's a team that doesn't mind wheeling and running and gunning a little bit more. Tanner Pearson needed to get the hell out of LA because his career was stalling a little bit there. I think it's a breath of fresh air for a very good offensive forward like Tanner Pearson to get away from the LA Kings and that mundane style of hockey and go to a team like Vancouver, which could be on the rise offensively. Josh Levo gave them an offensive spark after they got him from the Leafs last year on this Vancouver team. Louis Eriksson, can he still produce? Sutter, Jake Virtanen on a fourth line is an enigma. He goes through droughts, but he can also go through hot streak scoring. He's been up and down throughout his whole career, but when you've got a guy that's still got potential to light the lamp on your fourth line, I think that's a pretty good sign for Vancouver. Defensively, really like them. Chris Tanev, if he stays healthy, he's a good defenseman. Quinn Hughes, definitely. Lots of potential, great skater, offensive creativity, rush the puck up the ice, join the rush, contribute offense from the back end. The same goes for Tyler Myers, which was a nice addition from the Jets. Alex Edler, if he can stay healthy, he's still a really quality defenseman. I do have questions about the 5'6" defenseman. I'll be honest. Troy Stetcher is mediocre at best. Jordy Ben was not very good in Montreal. I got to see what he can do here in Vancouver. That could be a troublesome pairing, but I like the top four on that blue line. And then, of course, Markstrom, Demko. Definitely some question marks. So the bottom line is this total moved up a half goal, in my opinion, for a very good reason. I think Vancouver's improved offensively. I think the betting markets realize that they are not going to be that under team they were last year, especially if they're going to be 5.5 like they've been the last couple of years. Edmonton, I know Tippett's saying we've got to bring guys that are good penalty killers, that are going to be responsible away from the puck. It could take a good month or so, at least, for Edmonton to show any sign of improvement defensively. You can't just turn bad personnel defensively, the mistake prone, turnover prone, bad penalty kill, out of position, and all of a sudden Dave Tippett's here, and in the first game of the season it's going to be all better, and they're going to look like the 90s New Jersey Devils, left wing lock, trap style hockey? I don't think so. Not a chance. It's going to take time. I really like this game over. I liked it at 5.5. It was going to be a best bet for me on the show tonight at 5.5. It will not be anymore at 6, but it's still probably, if I had to throw it out there, what's my favorite play tonight? It's probably at Vancouver Edmonton over. 5.5. I got it at minus 115. I still endorse it at 6 at plus 100, like it is right now. Great value, great bargain. You know, you like to get these over sometimes that are bargains, not always have to be forced to bet these 6s and 6.5s all the time. I think this is a bargain, totals wise, on the Wednesday night card tonight. Alex, your thoughts on the Canucks and Oilers?
Well, I mean, you nailed it perfectly with the, breaking down these two teams and we talked about it on the Western Conference preview. If you guys haven't watched that, check that out. Where, Vancouver, the team I'm high on, I played their points total over. I think they'll be one of the teams in that Pacific Division to make the playoffs. Like I said, they have a lot of young talent. I think Elias Pettersson is a superstar on the rise. Besser, Bo Horvat, they said adding JT Miller and Michael Furlan, guys who have veteran playoff experience, can help some of those younger guys as they get down into the crunch time in that second half of the season. I like the tandem of Markstrom and Demko. I think they'll be improving over the year. And like I said, working as a 1A, 1B unit, that's a tandem I'm high on, higher than some of the other younger tandems. So at this spot here, an underdog spot against, like I said, Rome wasn't built in a day. Edmonton certainly isn't Rome. It's going to take quite a while to get things rolling, especially on the defensive end and even the offensive end. I mean, other than the 97, Connor McDavid, Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins also, chipping in there. This is a team we've seen them go ice cold on the scoring end. So I like where everything's going up for Vancouver. I think things are still kind of trending downward for Edmonton, and we're getting a good plus price here. I like the Canucks, and we're talking about it again a little bit later, but I really like the Canucks in the spot.
All right, liking Vancouver as a dog, plus 110. Pretty much consensus price right there with the Canucks tonight in this game. Let's see if that's fluctuated. It's actually gone up to plus 117 at Pinnacle. We've got a plus 112 at Heritage. So shop around. You might be able to squeeze out a couple more pennies depending on where you look there with the Vancouver side. Yeah, I think there's potential for both of these teams. I think probably a little bit more. I would definitely lean Vancouver tonight just because, Travis Green now third year, the coaching has not changed. It's the same system, same coaching staff. There's a little bit more continuity probably with Vancouver coming into the season than Edmonton. So I don't mind that Vancouver bet one bit at all tonight, plus 110. I'll probably throw it on my card as well, actually, as a smaller play, Vancouver at that underdog price, actually. I just think they might be a little bit further along continuity-wise than Edmonton right now, but definitely like over 5.5, even 6 as it is right now in this game tonight. Andrew, any thoughts from you, Vancouver and Edmonton?
So we talked about this game quite a bit, or these teams quite a bit yesterday during our breakdowns of the Western Conference, but I have 3 picks in this game. The first pick is the over 5.5. You can still get that at a few spots at minus 110, but like Ian said, it has changed quite a few shops. Second pick is going to be the Vancouver Canucks. So over and the Canucks. And then the third pick is going to be the over team total, 2.5 minus 130 for this Vancouver Canucks team. As you can tell, I obviously like the Canucks in this spot. And I love the phrase that Alex used, and I often forget to use something like that, and I think it's good. Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, I don't think this Oilers team is going to be built in 5 years. So we'll see how long it really takes, because they have the best player in the world, the fastest skater on the planet, at least on hockey skates, and they can't really get anything surrounding him. So I think it's the same thing as last year for at least the first 10, 15 games of the year, guys, where it's the Leon Draisaitl and the Connor McDavid show. Because I don't think there's, that supporting cast of even, if those guys can really step up, get going at least until the quarter of the season is over. Even things take time, and that's why you see a lot of times players at trade deadlines, they don't fit in right well with their teams right away. Some players can hop on a brand new team and absolutely click just like that. Some players need to take some time, and I've been talking about this all day. But when you've got guys like Ferland, Pedersen, Brock Besser, Ian's really talking about JT Miller yesterday, and that really hit home with me. Bo Horvat, Tanner Pearson, that's a good top six. And I think they even have a really good fourth line with Beagle, Virtanen, and picking up Tyler Myers. You got Chris Tanev, Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes is a guy that could really, really shock a lot of people for Defenseman of the Year, I think, the Norris Trophy. I really do expect him to take care of business and end up doing well. So for me, I'm looking at over team total over 2.5, Vancouver Canucks money line, and the full game over in this one. This is one of those games for me, guys, where I'm not really shy to have 3 picks on. I like it a lot.
All right, there we go. We've got Vancouver plus price. Vancouver, Edmonton over 5. We got to give out 6. We're not going to be one of these people that gives out lines that don't exist anymore. We got 5.5 when we bet it. It's 6 now, but we still like the over in that Edmonton-Vancouver game, even at 6, both Andrew and I. And you like that Vancouver team total over 2.5 minus 130. Let's not forget, we're going to see Mikko Koskinen tonight, or someone that we don't trust in net for the Edmonton Oilers, even if it's Smith, aging retread, who was lit up like a Christmas tree in the playoffs. Let's not forget that. So if it's one of those situations where if you're Calgary, or if you're Edmonton rather, you got goaltending you don't trust still. And remember, Koskinen in particular, it's a guy that we were ranting and raving last year that, his glove hand stinks. Beat him high glove. He's got terrible glove hand. And if he's in net again tonight, we're going to have some issues again with the, I think, players beating him glove side throughout. Look who's joined us. Look who's joined the fray and joined the party. Surprise appearance, because we weren't sure. He's had a busy day, media responsibilities, media duties. But Jimmy Murphy is in the house. Jimmy, how are you?
All over the place, boys. It was a mission to get back home, but I'm here. I figured I'd get in for the last few minutes, and I'm psyched. I cannot wait for tonight for hockey. There's some good games on the slate, and we got a great season ahead of us.
All right, awesome stuff, Jimmy. We've gone through the first 3 of the 4 games: Ottawa, Toronto, Washington, St. Louis, Vancouver, Edmonton. What leans or betting opinions do you want to throw out from those 3?
Okay, so I am liking Ottawa to pull off the upset in Toronto tonight. I love them. The Leafs, I think, right now are kind of a mess. I think there's too many distractions going on. I don't know, what's going on too with these teams leaving it to the last minute to name their captain and actually doing it in front of the crowd and at a game. But they wanted. I don't know if they had done it or not. I've been driving around the last hour, but if they haven't and that's their plan, I think it's asinine. I think it's a distraction. I think the Senators go in there and steal one. I think the Senators are going to be a lot better than people think this season. They won't make the playoffs, but they're going to be a pesky team. And they've got a lot of good young skill. So I like them to pull off the upset. And then what do we got for the second game there, boys?
Washington, St. Louis.
Washington, St. Louis. I think this is going to be the best one of all. I think it's going to be a heavy-hitting game, really tough game. I like the Caps to pull off the upset on the road here, and I love the under in this game. I like it to be, like I said, a really bruising game. It's going to be trouble getting the puck through the neutral zone. I think you got 2 good goalies who are going to go at it. So I like the under there, and I like the Caps. And then with Vancouver and Edmonton, I'm loving the over, just like you guys said there. I think there's going to be a lot of goals here. I think Vancouver could actually pull off the upset. I'm not going to go that far to make the bold prediction and say they do, but I think that's another team that people are sleeping on right now. And that's a team I actually think that could make the playoffs, because I think the Pacific Division is wide open out there. So keep an eye on the Canucks this season. I like the over in that game tonight.
Yeah,
great minds think alike there.
Exactly, definitely. Everybody liking this over at Edmonton, Vancouver, it seems. But I'll say this about Edmonton. The one concern, and I have a small bet on Vancouver too. As I think I'm going to include that on my card as well. Vancouver. The one concern is Edmonton might be jumping out of their skates tonight. Home opener, Connor's back. Our leader, our fearless leader, Connor McDavid's back. So I'm sure they're amped up and going to have a strong effort tonight on home ice, but doesn't mean they're better than Vancouver yet in game 1 with a new coaching staff, new systems, where Vancouver's just got better continuity, I think, going into the season. It's year 3 now for Travis Green and his regime out there in Van City. All right, we're going to wrap it up with
guys, quickly before you go on, I just want to ask you, I don't know if you guys discussed it or if you've had time to research it. I didn't, and I apologize for bringing it up and not doing it, but away teams in the openers, on the road, teams having a home opener, they had the ceremonies before and all that. We've always seen sometimes how the home team can come out sluggish. And it was interesting. Bruce Cassidy specifically mentioned that in his press conference before they took off for Dallas. He says, we hope to go in there and catch them sleeping. And now he said that last year, and they lost 7-0 to the Capitals down at the Verizon Center. But just, that's why I kind of like some of these road teams, guys. I don't think it's a bad bet to kind of, even if you want to just take the first period with the road team and maybe even the under, I think it's a good bet to kind of look at that. Home team's going to be distracted. They do all the player introductions. So it's something to keep an eye on here in these wave of first games for each home team.
Yeah, definitely. It's something I wish I had looked that up, right? Because the one thing I made sure I looked up is I want to know what these totals do on opening night. 9-3, as I mentioned, to the over in the last 12 opening night games over the last 3 years. We've had 9 overs and only 3 unders in 12 opening night games since 2016.
Wow.
So that's why I'm on the over in every game. Although the Washington St. Louis one, and I know you're on the under there, Jimmy, that's the one I'm trepidatious about. A little bit concerned about that one, but I still went ahead with it.
That's what Jimmy was saying. I was talking about this earlier today. Our creature, a lot of them people call goaltenders freaks,
Exactly.
Absolute weirdos. And I think that the smallest things can throw athletes off. They have routines. I've over the years, learned about just, not even just real professional players, but players that are trying to go pro or all-stars that are leaving the QMJHL here in the fall, winter, before the game. You see some of those guys doing their little, skate around, whatever it is. The smallest thing can throw somebody off. And, I guarantee some people could be listening to us right now and saying, I don't know about that, but I do think mentality is something, whether or not it's a game starting at 4:00 Eastern versus 7:00 Eastern, that can throw a certain player off. You don't want to be mentally weak, but, hockey players are creatures of habit. And I think that Jimmy has a really good point. Sometimes you want to your season on the road.
Yep.
Definitely. And you see these goalies and they're crazy, ridiculous in some cases, pregame routines and pregame habits when they're out there trying to zone in on the task at hand. It's insane. But speaking of insane, the nightcap on this opening night slate could turn into an insanity type of thing. The San Jose Sharks and the Vegas Golden Knights, talk about the intensity, the hatred, the dislike level being ramped up tenfold over the last 6-7 months or so, going back to the first round playoff series they had against one another last year. That's San Jose and Vegas. There's not a whole lot of love right now between Sharks and Knights when it comes to NHL hockey. You could see a little bit of an interesting and intense and very nasty affair tonight. Should be a fun one. Vegas minus 170 total, 6.5 in this game. Actually, I'm obviously that I bet the over in every game tonight, so I'm on the over 6.5 tonight in this game. But I'm also on the side here, and I'm doing something I don't always do. It's Ian puck line in this case tonight. We're laying the puck and a half with Vegas. Plus 160. It's down to plus 150, minus 1.5. I think this is a go for the kill spot for the Vegas Golden Knights. They hate this San Jose team. They thought they got screwed a little bit in the third period of that fateful Game 7 night last spring. That brutal collapse, all the power play time that San Jose had that they made the most of to come back and tie that game. And of course, they ended up winning it in overtime, a gut-wrenching, heartbreaking, crushing playoff series loss for Vegas to this San Jose team. I think they go for the jugular tonight. And right now, they're far better than San Jose. San Jose's got a lot of issues. They're a bet against team for me coming into the season. Joe Pavelski, heart and soul player, captain, gone to Dallas. That's a huge loss for this team. Joe Thornton only signs a few weeks before the season. I think, it's getting to the point where I think he's going to hit a wall, and I think the lack of the late signing is going to hurt him getting off to a good start for San Jose this season. I don't like their bottom 6 forwards, which aren't as deep as they were last year. Their blue line, Erik Karlsson, is a high-risk guy. He's great offensively. He's a train wreck defensively. I think there's a lot of older, slower defensemen. Brent Burns even got ripped apart a bit defensively in his own zone at times last year. I don't like that blue line collective, and it goes without saying. Martin Jones is the biggest issue I've got with San Jose. That was a debacle of a season for him last year. He completely soiled himself multiple occasions last year. I don't have much confidence and faith in him having a bounce-back season. Could he? Maybe, but I'm going to have to see it before I believe it. San Jose is a bet against team. Vegas is right there, in my opinion, with Colorado, Dallas, Throw out any other team you want in the West in terms of team that can win that conference and be in the Stanley Cup final. Yeah, I think they're taking San Jose out to the woodshed tonight. Give me Vegas -1.5. Vegas, baby. Vegas -1.5. +160 for me tonight, along with that game over the total. Alex, your thoughts on Sharks Golden Knights?
I'll be quick with this because I don't have any play in this, but the one thing I would look at and I kind of lean with would be the under, strictly on the fact that these two teams are going to be going at each other. Every stoppage of play between the whistles is going to be pushing and shoving. And the way that I feel that this is going to be called, especially with looking back at last postseason, San Jose was fortunate enough to get that major penalty call in Game 7. They were fortunate to get a couple of calls and non-calls from the refs. So the refs are going to be, people are going to be watching the refs, seeing how they call these San Jose games right away. And the fact that these two teams don't like each other, we saw the chippiness and the whole debacle in the last preseason game, the Vander Kane getting thrown out and suspended. The refs are going to call this fair and even, and they're going to call it both ways, meaning that if a guy's pushing and shoving back and forth, it's a Vegas player and a Sharks player going into the box. So we might see a lot of 4-on-4 time, which normally you want to say, oh, the open ice would lead to more scoring. I think it's going to be more of a disruption. There's not going to be a consistent flow, a pace of play in this game. And with getting a 6.5 number, I think that kind of leans itself a little bit to the under.
All right, I'll lean definitely to the under for Alex in this one. Andrew, San Jose taking on Vegas. Anything you like?
Yeah, I mean, to use a phrase to kind of add on to your funny phrase there, Ian, we're going to take this old team behind the barn and kind of just put them down. That's what the Vegas going to do to the San Jose Cheers. That sounds a little bit gruesome, and you're not really used to hearing that from me, but that's going to happen. I mean, you got some older guys in this San Jose team. They're missing a Vander Kane. I don't like their goaltender Martin Jones, and I definitely like Marc-Andre Fleury. And talking about a value perspective, getting good value early on in the season, not laying too much chalk, +150, +160 on the puck line. I really, really do like it. So that's my last play of the day here, Vegas puck line.
All right, Vegas puck line as well for Andrew. And yeah, because in some instances, the puck line, a team just wants to win the game. If they're up by 1, they'll just protect the lead. They may not go for the gusto. I might make an exception tonight, in my opinion, with this Vegas team. I could think they might want to kill this team by 3 or 4 goals or more than that. I could see them wanting to do that, given the absolute. And don't forget, there is maybe they're going to say it publicly in press conferences that they buried the hatchet, that everything's okay now. There's some dislike between Gerard Gallant and Peter DeBoer. All right. There's not a whole lot of love between those two head coaches. They were sniping at each other last year during the playoffs. There's some bad blood with the two coaches as well. If Vegas has a chance to tack on a goal or two up when they already have the lead, they may not hesitate to do it tonight, given the opponent and what they went through in the spring at postseason time last year. Jimmy, what's your take on Sharks and Golden Knights?
I mean, I love everything you guys are saying about this game. I think Alex, started off great there with the rough stuff. That's gonna be huge in this game. There's a lot of bad blood there, and we already saw it just in their recent preseason game too, how it's carried over. So I really, I think this is going to be a hard-fought game. I think it's a great point, with probably a lot of penalties, so maybe lean towards the under there. But I just think there's a lot of extra motivation on the Vegas side. This is one of those games that whether it was opening night or whether it was in December, I think the Vegas Golden Knights were circling this game. We need to win this game. This is redemption. And they can poo-poo that all they want and say, that's last year. And that's it. But I mean, I cover the Bruins, and obviously when they play the Blues the first time, it's going to be a big, big game because of what happened last spring in the Cup final. So I think this is a big game for Vegas. I love them to win this game. I'd say by like a 4-1 score.
All right, and obviously it goes without saying Jimmy Puckline is back for this game. -1.5, +150. It has dropped 10 cents. They got +160. It's +150 now in most places, but still a great price to get hopefully add on a plus price winner to the tote board tonight in the NHL. All right, that's going to wrap it up for our breakdowns of all of these games. We'll start with Alex. We'll recap his card first because he's got to slide on out of here. He is on Ottawa +245. Washington +130, Vancouver +110, and which of those is a best bet, Alex?
That'll be the Vancouver Canucks +1.10. Like I said, they just have a lot of good things going for them right now. I feel this is going to be a team that really elevates themselves early here against the Oilers team that's got to find an identity. And that's going to take some time. So Vancouver is my best bet tonight.
All right, best bet Vancouver Canucks plus 110. Alex, we'll let you get out of here. Enjoy opening night. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, see you guys. Take it easy.
See you,
All
Alex.
right, there's Alex. Andrew McGinnis, you're up next. I'll recap your card, and then you can let me know if any of them are a best bet. We're going to start with a prop from Andrew McGinnis. Jordan Binnington over 25.5 saves. He's on Ottawa, Toronto over 6.5. Minus 110, and he's on 3 plays from Vancouver, Edmonton. Vancouver plus 110, Edmonton, Vancouver over 6 plus 100, Vancouver team total over 2.5 minus 130, and Vegas puck line minus 150 plus minus 1.5, not minus 150. Vegas puck line minus 1.5 goals plus 150. Andrew, any best bets for you tonight?
Yeah, I'm also with Alex with Vancouver Canucks tonight. To me, this Canucks team should either be pick'em or the Canucks should be favored, and that's how I really want to start looking at these games. There's no way in hell this Edmonton Oilers team should be laying any type of price against really anybody in this league. To me, there's still going to be that team, like I said to you, it's going to be the Draisaitl and McDavid show. They got a few new guys, but things take time. You know, you don't always just gel with your teammates. So for me, ultimately, my best bet's going to be the Canucks. I think they get things done. They're going to shock a lot of people here tonight.
All right, there you go. Vancouver Canucks plus 110 is the best bet. And Jimmy Murphy's Wednesday night NHL card. Ottawa plus 245. He's right there with Alex in terms of the big dog with a chance to get a big ticket cashed. Washington plus 130. Washington St. Louis under 5.5 minus 110. He's going to keep digging with that Undertaker style. Vegas puck line minus 1.5 plus 150. Jimmy, any of those a best bet?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Vegas puck line. Jimmy puck line does it again. We'll go with Vegas coming out and getting, some revenge there for what happened last spring.
All right, and if you remember, Jimmy did a lot of his puck lines as 2-unit best bet plays last year on the Patreon Ice Guys. So he's not scared to go for the big gusto, which means that if it's a winner, that's 3.5 units, 3 units of profit, I should say, on that bet if it's a casher with the Vegas puck line for Jimmy Murphy. For me, my card, it's pretty stacked actually. This is but it's opening. There's just a lot of things that made sense. As I mentioned, we're going over the total in every game. No best bets for me. I'm going to be the downer of the group. No best bet. Everything's 1 unit straight across the board for me tonight. Ottawa, Toronto over 6.5 minus 110. Washington plus 130. Washington, St. Louis over 5.5 minus 110. Vancouver plus 110. Edmonton, Vancouver over 6 plus 100. That would have been a best bet at 5.5, but I'm scaling back now that it's 6 across the board. Vegas puck line minus 1.5 plus 150, and San Jose Vegas over 6.5 minus 110. That's going to wrap up our show. Thanks to everybody for joining us, and Jimmy too for joining us for the last 20 minutes. It's no problem. Hey, we were still going. Glad you could make it. We'll be back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, and we'll break down the Thursday night NHL card. That's our first big slate of the season. We got a lot of good stuff to break down tomorrow night. We got 8 games on the Thursday night slate, including my Stanley Cup Finals prediction is taking place tomorrow night. Boston, Dallas. I like those two in the Stanley Cup final. Ooh. That's one of the games that we will be breaking down tomorrow, so join us for that. For Andrew McGinnis, for Jimmy Murphy, and for Alex B. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy opening night. Good luck with all of your wagers, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow.